Hello everybody! Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 50, Asteroids, Spaceship. In the previous video, we talked about what is going to be involved in creating the Asteroids video game. Starting with this video, we're going to start coding the video game, and our goal for this video is to add a background image, adding a spaceship, and then adding some keyboard controls that let us move the spaceship around the screen in the way we previously described. In particular, the spaceship should be able to rotate to the left and right, and then to accelerate forwards in whatever direction it's currently facing. And the spaceship, like all other sprites in this game, are going to wrap around the screen. Alright, let's go ahead and begin by starting up our development environment. So here we are in IntelliJ, and in the images folder I've added a bunch of new images like an outer space background and the spaceship that we'll be using, and as usual all of this code will be uploaded to the GitHub, which is associated to this video series. Alright, so to begin, let's go ahead and create a new class. So the new class is going to be called, I guess we'll call it Asteroids. And as with all our games, we always want to extends the game class. And because we're extending the game class, we always have to add two methods, public void initialize and public void update. Alright, in the initialize method, we're going to go ahead and set up our two sprites. The spaceship sprite, since we're going to move it around, we'll need to reference it in the update method. So I'll declare a public sprite spaceship up here. I could also make a declaration for the outer space sprite, but you don't really need to access it in multiple methods, so I won't do that here. Instead, I'll say sprite background equals new sprite. Let's say background set texture to be a new texture. And that texture is going, actually, you know what? I'll split this on two lines, make it a little bit more readable. So let's say texture bg text equals new texture, and we're loading the image from the images folder, space.png. And then I'll set the texture to be this new bg text. And we can't see it unless we add it to the main group of sprites, which is being rendered. So we'll say group.add the background sprite. And at this point it's not much, but it is something we can test and run. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's run. And this is our new game, Asteroids. All right, it's going ahead. It's building that code for the first time. And here we go. And here's our image. The background image is not the same size as our default game. So we'll also change the sizes of some of the things as well. Right, this is a rectangular image. Oh, the other problem is that, remember, we need to set the position of the center of the image. Right, so I'd actually like to make this game a little bit larger. I'd like to maybe make this 800 by 600 pixels and then position this appropriately. So let's do that next. Alright, so right up here in initialize, maybe I'll immediately do set window size to 800, 600. And while I'm at it, let's also set the window title to Asteroids. Alright, and then finally, I'd like to position the background in the center of the screen. And so I'll do that by saying background.setPosition to be 400, 300, right in the middle of the window. All right, let's try running this again and see how this looks. And the goal is to get the correctly sized window with the background image completely filling it. And I'm pretty sure the background texture is 800 by 600. Sure enough, it is. And so you don't have to resize that at all. We could if we needed to with the set size method of the sprite class. But for now, this is good. All right, next, let's initialize the spaceship sprite. So still in the initialize method, we'll say spaceship equals a new sprite. And we'll create a texture. Spaceship text equals new texture, images / spaceship .png. And then we'll also say, let's set the position. Oh no, first we have to set the spaceship texture. Spaceship dot set texture to be SS text. And then we'll say spaceship dot set position. We'll also set that to start in the center. Then group dot add the spaceship. Right, there's some other things we do need to add to the spaceship as well, but I'm a big fan of testing code as frequently as possible, so let's make sure the images load correctly. All right, and here comes the window. Yep, and there's our spaceship right in the middle. We might end up making that a little bit smaller in the final version of the game, but yeah, it's a good start. Okay, now let's add some physics to the spaceship, and then we'll add some movement controls in the update method. And so for spaceship, we'll set the physics to be a new physics object. We have to create a new physics to attach to every object which is moving. All right, so maybe we'll set acceleration to, I don't know, something like 200. Right, maximum speed will be 200, and deceleration is going to be kind of slow, so maybe I'll make that just 20. And so when you let go of the acceleration key, it will slowly cruise down. Okay. Also, when I move it, I'm going to want it to wrap around the screen. We have a method that we can call named wrap to screen in the sprite class. But to make our lives even easier, we have an action system for the sprites. So I can add a wrap to screen action to the spaceship and then never need to worry about that again. So we'll do that. Let's say spaceship.add action. And in this case, I'm going to add a new action. Or I can say action dot. We've got all these different actions. The one called wrap to screen is what we'd like. 800, 600. All right, now, does that fit on one line? Yeah, I might just put that on one line. If I'm adding a sequence of actions, I definitely want to space it over multiple lines to make it more readable, but I think this is going to be okay. Next, even if we ran this, we wouldn't be able to see much of anything happening. So now let's go to the update method and let's add some keyboard controls. Right, so let's say if input dot, and remember we have a few key things. We have is key pressed, that's for continuous events, and is key just pressed, that's for discrete events. So we'll use is key pressed for movement, but is key just pressed for shooting lasers. And so let's say if input dot is key pressed, and in this case, we need the name of the key. And let's say here the key is the left arrow key. All right, what do we want to do in that case? We want to say spaceship.rotate by, right, some angle. And whatever we put in here, this takes degrees by default. We set it up. Remember, we're going to put a small number in here, but this code could execute 60 times a second. So, let's see, what do I want to do here? Maybe 4? Right, and let's just make sure that this works. Right, the big thing I'm worried about, did I remember the names of the keys correctly? Let's find out. Let's go ahead and run. Now we should see that spaceship on the screen. Hopefully by pressing the left arrow key, we're able to get the spaceship to turn. Yep, and there it goes, it's a-turning. However, it's turning to the right. I actually want to rotate by -4. Let's also say, if the right arrow key is pressed, then maybe we'll rotate by 4. You know, maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller, just so you have some better control. And then finally, maybe we'll use up for the spaceship thrusters to move it forward. And so if input.is key pressed, the up arrow key, we'll say spaceship.accelerate. Oh no, this is in physics. And so physics dot, we have accelerate at angle, accelerate value, accelerate by. And so what do we need here? This is accelerate by an amount and an angle. Let's try accelerate at angle. The angle is going to be, right, we could use accelerate by, that requires us to put in a value and an angle, but accelerate at angle will use whatever was stored in the physics object in this first component, that acceleration value. So our code will be a little bit more readable if we use this function. So I want to accelerate at the angle the spaceship is facing. So this is going to be spaceship.angle. All right, so hopefully that'll allow us to move the ship around the screen. This will also allow us to check to make sure that the wrap is working as expected. Let's go ahead and run this code, see what happens. And 3 things to test: rotating to the left, rotating to the right. So pressing left, that looks great. Pressing right, and finally pressing up. There goes the spaceship, and it wraps around the screen. And if I let go, not pushing any arrow keys, it still moves forward. It does slow down a little bit, so that's good. And you can see that I can accelerate in all the different directions. And if you want to put on the brakes, you have to turn around and accelerate in that direction. Great. So we have our background, we have our spaceship games coming along. In the next video, we'll go ahead and add the rocks to the game. Right? What is Asteroids without those floating space rocks? This is a good breaking point for now. Thanks for watching.